The Birken bag on Gilmore Girls. Have I talked about it before? Yes, but never this question. If Gilmore Girls was a low-budget show, how did we afford to buy the Birken bag? And everything else I talked about before. And while we're at it, let's address the whole Emily and Richard not being able to afford the bag. First, the budget of Gilmore Girls. How do they work, and why were we a low-budget show? Because Gilmore Girls was on an off-network, the WB and CW, it did not have NBC, aka Friends, money. The ratings for Gilmore Girls were much lower than the ratings for a show that was on, like, let's say, NBC. Now, the ratings are what paid for your budget. The higher your ratings, the more money you had to be able to spend on your show. Now, if Gilmore Girls had been on any other network with the same ratings, it would have been canceled immediately. But if Gilmore Girls had been on another network, perhaps more people would have watched. WB did not promote the show the way that NBC could because NBC had way more money. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe that WB and CW were in every single US market. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but let's talk about the budget itself. Every episode of Gilmore Girls has a very specific budget catered to the script. If there's something mentioned in the script that needs to be covered, they usually will include enough money for that item. But something like the Birken bag would definitely be off pattern. They probably went into the AMWART. The AMWART is kind of like a bank account. Each department has an AMWART that they could pull money from whenever they needed something that was like extra, or something that was like maybe you were going to use it for every single episode, so you wouldn't just bill it to one episode. Now, how did our prop master Paula get the bag? She went directly to Hermes and bought it. At that time, you had to have an invitation to buy the bag. I don't know how they swung that one, but probably what happened is when they wrote it into the script, they reached out to Hermes, they got it cleared, and that was probably what opened the door. What was it like having the bag on set? Did I get to touch the bag? Yes. And also, before filming that episode, I had no idea what it was. We knew it was a big deal because the producers kept it under lock and key and hand delivered it to set every day. One of my favorite memories of the bag was the first day at work. Now, that's not a photo of props holding the bag. That's Dennis Harper, our key grip, who was just so curious. He's like, can I touch it? I just want to figure out why this thing is so expensive. Let's talk about Emily and Richard and the bag. If you follow this comment back, someone tried to answer your question with, well, Emily and Richard could have totally afforded the bag. The point of Emily not having a bag was that it was a plot device. The Huntsbergers were of a different ilk than the Gilmores. That the Huntsbergers were richer than rich. That their 20-year-old son could just casually walk into Hermes and buy a bag for his girlfriend. They weren't even engaged. It was just his girlfriend. That was the point of the bag. Emily and Richard are rich, but they're rich because they're not buying frivolous things all the time. What happened to the bag afterwards? Oh, producers.